I am Graham, a trucker who reads a lot of books. My goal is to be a full-time author and illustrator. You're helping me get there by watching this video, so thanks. Now on to the video. It's been a while since I cited this, but it's relevant right now. There's a passage in the book Hatchet by Gary Paulson, which everybody should read every couple of years because it's fantastic. It's about a young boy who survives a small plane crash in the Canadian wilderness. He's 13 years old, and all he has to help him survive is a hatchet. And at first, he's very emotionally distraught, as any 13-year-old would be, even one who is a product of the 80s. That's when the book was published. And he's working through some of the turmoil and the trauma and the feelings about it, and he has a fit, he has a good cry, he feels helpless for a while, and he has this epiphany that is just one of the best paragraphs in the whole book, where he realizes that what he's doing isn't working. Because it's not that it's wrong or immoral or foolish, it's just that it doesn't work. He could cry, he could throw fits, he could swear at the sky and whatever, but at the end of the day, he would still be cold, tired, and hungry. He had to do what worked. This is a paragraph that pops into my head from time to time because it works in multiple contexts. And in today's context, I'm thinking about a post that I saw on a social media site last night. I got tagged in this one, me and a couple of other people. Some of them I don't know. One of them is another author. He's a full-timer and he's very well known. And the question was about politics. And if it was coming from anybody else, I'm not going to name this guy, but he might watch this. He might know who he is. If it was coming from most other people, I would have just assumed that it was kind of a bad take or a gotcha. But I've got a pretty decent familiarity with this dude, and I'm certain he was coming from a place of earnestness. Like, he was asking, like, well, how can you support this if this doesn't make sense, whatever. It was some quote that he was sharing where some guy who knew Trump said that Trump had compared himself favorably to the funny mustache man from Germany. Now, right out of the gate, I'm just going to say that, like, I've learned over the last several years to just generally not believe news about Trump because most of it turns out to be unfounded, we'll say. This one, I'm guessing a couple of people responded, and this particular instance apparently was discredited as an outright fabrication, or that the guy saying it had found out that he was lying or something. I've got no personal confirmation of that. I just don't believe stuff like that, and if people share it, I shrug. I don't care. I'm not going to waste the time that it would take to look into it, because more often than not, stuff like that just turns out to be not true, and I don't worry about it. But more to the point, I've got plenty of people in my orbit and that I associate with that are not of the same political stripe that I am, and that goes in both directions. I DM'd this friend who tagged me in this thing later, and just told him, it's like, look, I've had people unfriend me over not supporting Trump. I've had people unfriend me over saying anything remotely nice about Trump. Like, I think it's a dumb thing to base a friendship on. But more to the point, if your ultimate goal is to persuade people to your perspective, is this going to work? Does it work? Every once in a while, you'll see one of these info memes pop up in social media sites. It's one of those perma posts that just makes the rounds every so often. And it's about a man named Daryl Davis. He was, keep in mind, I don't even know how accurate this is, but he's a black man who made friends with a lot of Klan members, like Ku Klux Klan members, over the years. And just by getting to know them and being friends with them, like, they were able to come around to changing their beliefs on black people, and they gave up their Klan membership. I don't know to what extent he was successful in this, but it seems like it happened more than once. And just by being friends and being honest and earnest, people that he knew gave up morally abhorrent practices. In this case, racism. on its surface, that's what that was. Uh, that's what worked. It wasn't about him, coming at him and saying, why don't you recognize that I have rights as a man of a different color or whatever. It's just he did something honest and earnest, and these men changed their behavior as a result. That's what works. I've really eased off on my political posting in the last several years. I know I've done a couple of videos here, usually when it's something that relates to a book that I've read. Back in January, I read that book about Grover Cleveland, and that's what made me realize, like, hey, if Trump pulls this off, and right now it looks like the polls are saying he will, he'll be only the second man to ever do it, to be a non-consecutive two-term president in the history of the United States. And I find interest in those things. It kind of gives us a glimpse at what the late 1800s might have been like if people were so divided that they didn't re-elect a man until somebody else had done the job and they realized, hey, we like the other guy more. There's merit to learning about that. And if you get to a point where you can't maintain a friendship with somebody or have a discussion with somebody because they believe something that you have a hard time getting on board with, I mean, I guess everybody's got their line, but does that work? What is the end goal of that? Like, follow that to its natural productive conclusion, and what is the result going to be? And a lot of times if something like this happens and somebody sends something to me and I just look at it and like, that's dumb, like, I would just ignore it. In this case, like I said, with this particular guy, like, I don't think that he was being disingenuous about it. One of the other authors that he tagged in the post was a little bit more forward in his reply, and I was not surprised. This author is known for being willing to throw a punch on social media. But in the end, if your goal is to persuade somebody or to sway somebody to your perspective, what will work? Will obviously attacking won't work? Will shaming them work? Will a gotcha question work? Will a passive-aggressive question work? Or will it just be a matter of, like, do what Daryl Davis did? If you have a friend who's very much on an opposite ideological spectrum from you, or on the opposite end of that spectrum, what's the best way to really help them to understand where you're coming from and for you to understand where they're coming from? And that's just be friends with them, like, get to really know them, understand that people are complex, and dividing yourselves among certain lines that are ultimately unproductive is not the way to go. One of my good friends, he's an officer in the Army. When I say officer, I mean, like, he went to West Point. He's got, I don't know, like, what's considered a high rank, but he's above captain, he's above major. And he served in the mission with me. Back in 2016, we had a couple of other mission buddies who were also, like, very politically active online, and one guy was just, like, apoplectic over the idea that we weren't enthusiastic about a Trump candidacy. And this was back when Graham was not only a card-carrying member of the Republican Party, but also still believed that the system worked. And I was very upset that with the deepest candidate bench in a generation, that the primary was just getting utterly bushwhacked by Trump, instead of us having any kind of substantive discussions about various candidates. And Rubio, like every other Republican in the party, got just utterly bodied by Trump. Trump went on to get the nomination, and I said, all right, I'm out. I left political parties behind. I didn't switch parties and go to the other side, because I still have and continue to have many substantive issues with the Democrats and their platform. But I realized that I would be better off serving my own values if I was just lowercase I independent, neutral. You'd be able to criticize flaws in any party. And then when an election comes around and, what are the viable, likely options? Vote for the best one that I think can win. And if I find something, like, absolutely morally reprehensible, look at a third party or a smaller party candidate. I have done that. In Nevada in 2016, they don't do write-ins for the president. You've got to pick like one of the actual registered like minimum threshold political parties or the two major ones. And I didn't like the two big ones. I didn't know anything about the lesser ones, so I just checked the other box that we have in Nevada, which says none of these. And that was how I lodged my protest vote. And then Trump actually had his presidency, and I saw a lot of what he did and thought, okay, that's not what I thought it was going to be. And then Biden got installed in 2020, and it's like, okay, here we are in 2024. It looks like Trump's going to win. I am more excited about the potential future candidacy of J.D. Vance. I like a lot of what he says and does. I like a lot of his perspectives. He is a politician. He will inevitably disappoint me. It's just going to happen. It is what it is. But I am not willing to burn any friendships over it. I've lost friends over politics before, and there's this pithy saying of like, well, I've never lost a friend over politics, because if they burn you over politics, they were never your friend. It's like, I'd like to be able to say that, but a couple of people that have like ditched me because I wouldn't see things their way, like it bugs me. I miss them. I wish that wasn't the case, but here we are. So in the end, I think about Brian Robinson, trapped, stranded, whatever. I can English, in the woods with nothing but a hatchet, and I think what works and what doesn't. I'm going to cap it off with just a screen cap here from President Oaks. He's a religious leader in my church. Very, very wise man. He was a federal judge before he became an apostle 40 years ago. In fact, just a few months before I was born. And this is counsel that he's given to the members of our church and to the entire world, just about this exact sort of thing. Because the doctrinal gospel of Jesus Christ and everything, it's not a political doctrine. It's a religious doctrine. It's a covenant doctrine. And sometimes you'll find things in one party that aligns with that gospel and in the other party that aligns with that gospel. But, for us as Christians, what's a higher value to us? Our faith and our religion, or our political beliefs? And are we trying to shoehorn one into the other, or should these things just be separate and we should hold to our highest values? If you want to read this in detail, just go ahead and pause it. But basically my thought. I'm the older I get, the more I see the value in peacemaking. That doesn't mean capitulating or compromising. Peacemaking is a little bit more complex and might require a little bit more effort, and seeing the individual value in another person instead of just what they believe. It can get tricky, and I've certainly fallen short of that standard plenty of times. But in the end, what will work? Thank you for watching that. To help the channel, check out my books on Amazon. Buy one, read it, tell me what you think. For October, I recommend Sleepless Hollow, a fantastic sci-fi romp with guns, ghosts, and gonzo action sequences. You can also subscribe to my Substack, where I do more detailed book reviews and longer-running projects, some of which is paywalled. Drive safe. See you out there.